Hey guys, what's going on? Appreciate you guys checking out another video from me. But I wanted to come on here and do a little check-in after about a month. So far, I've learned a lot and still have so much more left to learn. So just want to cover, a few things that I've come across and experienced in my journey so far of starting the Pokemon shop, and yeah, and hopefully, get you guys up to date and see who else wants to come follow the journey with me. But yeah, so about a month ago was when I decided to start the business. I felt a little bit of motivation. I knew something was kind of missing for me personally, and I wanted something that I could build for myself and kind of really be proud of and take ownership of. So, um, I thought it would be optimal for taking one of my interests and pursuing it from that angle. So yeah, that's how I kind of arrived at the whole Pokemon shop thing. And then also I follow Pokey on YouTube, so I saw some of his content and some of the stuff he talked about starting it and what you need to do and how pretty much you can start from anywhere. You don't have to have a ton of money to start it up and that sort of thing. So I just took the advice and ran with it. I made a website. I registered my business for an LLC. I got a EIN tax number for the business. So some of those startup costs, there's definitely costs associated with those things. So um, and then there's also some additional costs that wasn't aware of, wasn't prepared for, something totally out of the blue, because unfortunately with one of the um, foreign language Pokemon suppliers that I was reaching out to in an attempt of establishing some sourcing avenues for product. I did get scammed. So, I did lose some money that way. And unfortunately, a tough lesson to learn, but obviously one that I'll never forget. And I'm not going to let that happen to me again. Now, after watching more of Pokeani's content, apparently, that unfortunately is something that does happen. And, it can happen in any business, not just this where you're trying to purchase products internationally, which is difficult, and there's some faith you have to have, right? Some blind trust you have to have in being able to acquire some inventory to be able to get started, but and have something to actually sell and offer your customers. So um, that's definitely a cost I incurred that had not anticipated, right? But to be honest, easily could have shied away, said, "Man, that's it. Like, can't afford to lose any more money. I'm out." You know, that sort of thing. Just kind of pack it up and go home. But for me, I'm a little stubborn. I'd like to see it more as being resilient and persistent. Um, and so, I'm going to keep moving forward. Like I said, opportunity for learning there. Unfortunately, some of the best lessons you learn are from doing and failing, right? So, um, it's not always necessarily a failure out and out. It's an opportunity to learn. So, going to take that for what it was. Obviously, do way better in my due diligence in what I do, and trying to vet some people and a little listen a little better to my intuition. So things like that, unfortunately, are going to happen. Like Pokeani said on his, people scam you. He's had people, take deliveries that were sent to the wrong place and not do the right thing, and either send it back to the shipping company, or try to find a way to contact them, especially nowadays with the internet and everything. It's so easy to see. It's like, okay, your name's not on this package. Easy enough to Google somebody, right, on their name, or to actually Google their address or something. Easy enough. Okay, you don't want to take it to them, sure, understood, right? But you can at least find a way to figure out who this person is, and kind of connect the dots. It's really not that hard these days, with all the social media and all that kind of stuff. Pretty easy to put one and one together, connect the dots, and be able to find them that way. So, they're just dishonest people out there. That's unfortunate, but you're going to come across that. And in pretty much every business, there's going to be people that are dishonest. They have hidden agendas, all that kind of stuff. So, unfortunate. Like I said, just going to move on and keep pushing forward. So we're 1 month in. I've done a pretty decent amount of sales on eBay so far, selling some singles. A lot of them are mostly from PC collection to help cover the startup costs, and help you cover some of the initial inventory costs. And so, that's going pretty well. I've amassed over $1,500 in revenue from that. I've had 90 sales as of today, which is the 22nd. So, I think overall pretty good, because none of those cards were more. I think the most expensive card was like $45 that I sold. So most of them a lot smaller dollar. Obviously, you can kind of do the math there. 1,500 in the revenue and 90 sales, right? So a lot smaller dollar. So some of them took some time to get the listings up, and it definitely, there's an investment of time there. A lot of them, because I had from a single set, where I had several duplicates, or several copies, I should say, of different cards. So some of them are still up on the shop. I've got new stuff that's up there. There's a lot of stuff that I'm continuing to go through the collection and saying like, hey, I don't really need this, or I find out that yes, I do have duplicates of these, and I can definitely afford to move that. I haven't gotten rid of any of my core collection. I haven't had to break any of that up. Nothing's like bad to that point. I had definitely an initial investment of the inventory that was from money that I had saved up personally. So that's what's funded the initial part. But like I said, the sales, or the revenue from these initial sales through eBay, has helped cover some of those initial costs, like registering the LLC, registering for the EIN number, all that good stuff. So, through that, and then I still have a decent amount left over that's going to go towards, covering slash paying me back slash recovering some inventory funding, so I can bring in more inventory, right? And then I've done a few lives on TikTok as well, and I've made a few. I think I've made 5 or 6 sales on there, so not a ton on there. Again, huge shout out to Pokémon for a lot of the stuff that he talks about, and it's really true. As far as, it's huge to start making content and at least putting yourself out there to get some type of recognition, right? You've got to establish some type of following. You've got to get people who are coming in to view your shop, and get people funneled towards viewing your shop, whether it be on TikTok, or your own website, or even putting it out there that you have stuff on eBay. Now, eBay's obviously the established platform, right, that more people have trust through, because eBay's the established brand, right? They're not so worried about buying from individual sellers, because there's more protections there. So there's a little bit, a little bit, um, bigger challenge getting through the TikTok and here on YouTube and creating that following. So, I've gained a couple subscribers here on YouTube. I've gained a decent amount of followers on TikTok. One, just by going live, but two, also by creating content and posting it on their short videos, um, pictures that kind of like behind the scenes or when inventories come in, and using it to post stories and let people know when I'm going live. And then, of course, you can kind of get lucky by people someone upon your live and that sort of thing. So, like I said, I've gotten a decent amount of followers from there as well. So, I appreciate all the support there. Um, I think I've done a few $100s in sales on TikTok. So nothing too huge. So I'm coming up on close to $2,000 in revenue on just the first month. And so, we're going to keep plugging away and we're going to keep grinding at it. We're going to keep making content. So just like this, I'm going to continue to check in and do some of the behind the scenes. Hopefully here soon, I'm going to have some content to show about development of some of the space. I had some of the packing supplies and that sort of thing that I showed on one of the previous shorts that I put out there, and how I'm using the spare room. So right now that's mainly being used to house the shipping and packing material. But um, ideally, I'm going to be moving in there to do the streaming. I still got to get some lighting and that kind of stuff in that room. There's no overhead light installed or anything, so I've got to get that figured out. I'm gonna get some stuff in there to help store the inventory, so it's not just sitting in the boxes it came in. Get more organized. Get the set up. More professional, that sort of thing. So I'm excited about a lot of it, and sometimes I'm not going to lie, it is kind of difficult. It's like, okay, what am I going to talk about here on this video? What are some new topics? But luckily, again, just like Pokeani has suggested, there are a lot of sources for content, right? You can watch other Pokemon YouTubers. You can check pokebeach.com, you can check PokeGuardian, all these different sources for new things that are going on. You can just look at some things that are being talked about on other social media platforms, whatever you come across, right? Like the whatnot scammer stuff going on, the PSA stuff going on. I found that out. A friend of mine just texted me, let me know about the acquisition of Beckett and that sort of thing. And so, was able to look that stuff up and try to get a little more information about it and hop on and make a short. So there's really a lot of information out there. And then even beyond that, you can take so many other topics and you can make them into longer series. So this is going to be one of many, you know, kind of business check-in, like how are things going, sort of videos that I plan on making. I don't, like I said, don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Things, even if they slow down, we're still going to keep pushing. We're going to keep trying to make things happen. You can't just give kind of a soft, lackadaisical kind of effort and just say like, well, I tried. I mean, you could. There's nothing wrong with that if you figure out that this really isn't for you. But I know it's not going to be easy. I knew that going in. I didn't expect to come in and just have a bunch of people lining up to buy stuff from me, right? You got to establish that connection. Um, Pokeani Brian mentions it in a lot of his content as well, of kind of creating those relationships, or creating the content that creates at least the illusion that people know you personally, that kind of thing. So, but just trying to be transparent here, show you guys what it's been like, how it's going so far. when things happen, share the wins, share losses too. When they happen, like I said, like the scamming incident, unfortunately that's um, part of business, right? It doesn't have to be somebody out and out just taking money from you and not giving you any product, but it could be somebody giving you the type or quality of product um, that you paid more money for, that you were expecting higher quality, or something of that nature. It's or paying somebody to do a job and they do it, but it's just not at the level that you expected. I mean, unfortunately, you'd still have to pay them, right? So, you that isn't necessarily considered an out and out scam, but you're not getting what you paid for, right? So it doesn't feel good, and it's definitely not worthwhile. If it's something that's got to be fixed or redone, then you got to pay more money. So, um, just examples, generalizations that can happen on any business. So, again, like I said, I'm pretty pleased with how things are going. I've learned a lot of stuff about shipping. I've learned a lot of stuff about using the Shopify for my website and creating product listings and all these kind of things, right? That you kind of take for granted as a consumer when you hop on somebody's live or you go to somebody's website. You don't really think about the time it took for them to write up the descriptions and make sure everything looks good and make sure the images look okay. And um, I'm not gonna lie, like, I come on and do the videos that, like, none of this is scripted. Obviously I bounce around, if you've watched a few of these by now, but um, it's just it's just doing the things, right? Sometimes you just have to do it, and making the content and all that. I never thought in a million years I would be posting videos to YouTube. If you asked me 5 weeks ago, I would have been like, why would I post anything to YouTube? Like, I have no interest in that. I've never posted really anything on TikTok either. Some stuff, personal stuff on Instagram, but certainly not to the extent of like clips and reels and that sort of thing, to be able to get my face out in front of the community, and try to get establish some connections and meet people and that sort of thing. So it's all a learning experience. I'm learning more and more. I know I have a lot to learn about a lot of the social media stuff, and how to leverage that, um, how to leverage it better and be able to get a broader reach. And still learning the whole TikTok and doing the lives and all that, and trying to get people to show up and hang out. There's no pressure people actually to buy anything. If you don't want to buy anything, or you're not interested, or anything like that, that's fine. Come hang out, you know, um, send some comments in the chat. Just hang out, and talk about anything. Talk about the shop. If you have your opinions on stuff in Pokemon, if you're a sports fan, I can chat about really anything. So it's not a transaction only platform, right? Come in, hang out, say hey. you know Again, doesn't cost you anything to follow or throw some likes or something like that. That would really help out, getting my name out there and that sort of thing. And so I'm just trying to establish myself in a place that's pretty saturated. And I understand that, but it's going to be the ones that keep grinding, that keep trying to push forward, that eventually succeed. And by no means did I think I was going to hop on and sell a bunch of stuff right off the bat and be like, oh my god, like, this is so much faster than I expected or anything. So that hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it can't happen at some point, and maybe get caught with not holding enough inventory. But for right now, I've got a pretty solid amount of inventory. I just got Mega Dream EX in stock. I know it's a little behind the rest of folks, but For where I was and the sales that I was making and everything, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense for me to jump on it real early, pay a higher price, and while I'm still not getting a whole lot of traffic, try to sell at a much higher price point. So I waited, let the price go down a bit, got some quotes from suppliers, and I've got it in at a decent cost. I think it still went down even a little bit recently, which I'd already put the order in, and so kind of gotta um, take the L on as far as that goes, but you know, still just going to keep doing my thing and trying to get more comfortable with making the content and try to make more content that's interesting that people want to watch. So, and try to be transparent and just show you guys the real stuff. It's like I'm very fortunate. I have a good 9 to 5 that supports me very well. In my lifestyle. Like I'm not, partying. I'm not doing all these crazy things. I'm not flying across the country to go to Pokecons or collector cons or anything like that. Just going to try to do it the smart way, just like I've done, trying to build up my career in the 9 to 5 and continue working hard with that. So, like I said before, I appreciate everybody's support that has, come in lives. If you've bought anything, if you've followed me on social media, if you're watching this video, if you've watched any of my clips, um, all love, appreciate it so much. And I hope you guys hang on and continue to follow me, on this journey as we keep moving forward and keep learning and hopefully continue to grow. So if you're not already, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram. On TikTok, especially, follow me on there, especially if you want to hop in the lives. I will post all my stories when I'm going live and what time. I'm on East Coast time. And then also check out the shop. If you haven't already, even leave me comments, stuff you want to see in the shop, things that you're looking for. Maybe I can get a hold of them and, we can set something up and be able to make it happen. So, like I said, appreciate you guys. That's Scrow Rips, same as the name here on YouTube, on Instagram and TikTok, and it's scrowrips.com for the shop. So again, much appreciated. Have a good one, guys. See you later.